Poor woman accidentally entered wrong hospital room. But the Mafia boss said, "You can't leave now." A broke hospital clerk opens the wrong door on a stormy night and finds a wounded king of the city's underworld staring back. The door locks. His voice is calm, deadly. "You can't leave now." On the tray, an open ledger with her father's name inside. Suddenly, she's not a witness. She's leverage. He takes her under protection, but every shadow hides a trap. A rival crew hunting her, a smiling right-hand man who feels wrong, and a secret plan that started the moment that hospital bed was filled with bullets. The boss is lethal to the world, gentle only to her. But if the traitor inside wins, she becomes the bait that ends them both. So tell me, when the city turns into a maze of guns and lies, will she run from the monster who guards her, or step closer and survive? The rain hammered against the window panes, casting shifting shadows across the dimly lit VIP suite. Cora's heart thudded against her ribs as she clutched the consent forms to her chest, her knuckles white against the crisp paper. The sterile hospital scent mingled with the rich cologne, creating a disorienting mix that made her head spin. Sebastian Vale studied her with the calculated precision of a predator, his dark eyes never leaving her face. Despite the bandages wrapped around his torso and the IV line snaking into his arm, power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. The gun on his tray gleamed dully in the low light, a silent threat that needed no voice. "Please," Cora said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm just a clerk. Whatever I saw." "The ledger," Sebastian interrupted softly. "Tell me exactly what name caught your attention." Cora swallowed hard, her mind racing back to those awful months after her father's death. The endless stream of notices, the mounting debts that made no sense for a man who'd lived so carefully. "Kingston Holdings," she said finally. "I saw that name on letters that came after my father died, but he never mentioned—" Sebastian's expression shifted minutely. He reached for his phone, his movements controlled, despite the medical equipment tethering him to the bed. "Your full name?" "Cora Bennett." She lifted her chin, refusing to cower even as fear clawed at her throat. "And I'd like to know if you're actually a patient or if this is something else entirely." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Both, Miss Bennett." He pressed a button on his phone, and within moments, a suited man appeared with a thick wool coat and a bag that smelled of expensive takeout. "You're cold," Sebastian observed, "and you haven't eaten since your shift began 12 hours ago." The accuracy of his assessment sent a chill down her spine. "How did you—" "Your schedule is posted on the ward rotation. Your hands are shaking from low blood sugar, not just fear." He nodded to the coat. "Put it on." The wool was butter soft against her skin as she slipped it on, warmth immediately seeping into her tired muscles. The guard placed the food on a small table, the tantalizing aroma making her stomach growl traitorously. Sebastian's tablet lit up with a series of alerts, security footage showing Cora's path to his room from multiple angles. Her heart sank as she realized how thoroughly they'd tracked her movements. When one of the guard's phones buzzed with an incoming message, Sebastian's expression hardened. "They've identified you already," he said, his voice carrying an edge of steel. "We leave before dawn." "We," Cora's voice cracked. I have responsibilities, patients who need—" "Your next shift isn't for 36 hours, Sebastian cut in smoothly. "Plenty of time to ensure your safety." "My safety?" She tried to laugh, but it came out more like a sob. "I'm standing in a room with an armed man who's supposedly a patient, looking at a ledger that somehow connects to my father's mysterious debts. And you're talking about my safety?" Sebastian's eyes softened fractionally. "Your father," he said carefully, "was a good man caught in a bad situation. Kingston Holdings is a front for something far more dangerous than debt collection. And now that you've seen that ledger, you're involved whether you wish to be or not." Cora sank into the visitor's chair, her legs no longer able to support her. "I don't understand any of this." "Eat," Sebastian commanded gently, nodding to the food. "You'll need your strength. And while you do, I'll explain exactly why your father's death wasn't the accident it appeared to be." With trembling hands, Cora opened the takeout container. The aroma of perfect ribeye steak and roasted vegetables wafted up, a surreal contrast to the institutional setting. She noted absently that it was exactly what she would have ordered for herself, another detail Sebastian had somehow known. How long have you been watching me? She asked, spearing a piece of perfectly cooked asparagus. Long enough to know you're the only person in this hospital who double-checks every medication order against patient allergies, even when it's not your job. Sebastian adjusted his position, grimacing slightly. Long enough to know you send half your paycheck to your mother in Arizona every month. Long enough to know you deserve answers about your father. The food turned to ash in her mouth. And these answers come with strings attached, I assume? Everything has strings, Miss Bennett. The question is whether you prefer to see them clearly or remain tangled in them blindly. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky and the rain intensified. Cora watched droplets race down the window, each one carrying a reflection of the city lights below. Her entire world had shifted in the span of minutes, tilting on its axis until nothing made sense except the steady gaze of the dangerous man in the hospital bed. Why me? She whispered, more to herself than to him. Because you saw what others missed, Sebastian replied. Just like your father did. The difference is I'm here to protect you from the consequences of that observation. The gravity in his voice made her look up, meeting his eyes. Despite his wounds, despite the clinical setting, he radiated an absolute certainty that both terrified and reassured her. Whatever storm she'd stumbled into, Sebastian Vale was its eye, the calm center of a hurricane of violence and power she was only beginning to comprehend. The elevator doors slid open onto the hospital's basement level, revealing a maze of service corridors lit by harsh fluorescent lights. A driver in a black suit held the door while scanning the shadows. Cora clutched the borrowed wool coat tighter around herself as Sebastian's security team moved with practiced efficiency. Stay close, the driver murmured, guiding her through the loading dock's industrial space. Rain drummed against the metal roof, creating a thunderous echo. They emerged into the pre-dawn darkness where a black SUV idled, its engine a low purr against the storm. Inside the vehicle's warmth, Cora found herself beside Sebastian, who looked even paler against the leather seats. His bandages needed changing, but his focus remained razor-sharp as he checked his phone. The security footage will leak within hours, he said, his voice tight. My rival. Let's call him Kingston. Has people everywhere. Once he sees you in that room, you become leverage. Then let me go to the police, Cora insisted, watching raindrops race down the tinted windows. File a report, get protection. Sebastian's laugh held no humor. Kingston owns half the force. The other half won't touch him. Do you know how many routine traffic stops end with my people in body bags? The SUV glided through empty streets, passing beneath sodium lights that cast orange gleams on wet asphalt. Sebastian reached into his jacket, producing an envelope and a sleek phone. Take these, he said. Enough cash to disappear if that's what you choose. The phone is secure, untraceable. Cora stared at the offerings. And if I don't disappear? Then you need more than money. Sebastian pressed a button, and the vehicle turned toward downtown's glittering towers. You need walls, security, and people who know how to handle threats. They pulled into an underground garage beneath a luxurious high-rise. The elevator required both a keycard and fingerprint scan, rising smoothly to the penthouse level. The doors opened directly into a stunning apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor in shades of gray and blue. A man with military bearings stood at attention near the entrance. Miss Bennett, I'm Gabe. I'll be stationed in the hall whenever you're here. This is yours. He handed her a small key fob. Panic button for the elevator. One press locks down the entire floor. Sebastian moved carefully to a leather armchair, gesturing around the space. The guest room is through there. Ensuite bathroom, fresh linens, kitchen's fully stocked. Use whatever you need. No one enters your bedroom without explicit permission, myself included. Cora absorbed the rules, noting the strategic placement of security cameras and the reinforced windows. Everything spoke of preparation, of layers of protection wrapped in luxury. Your stitches are awful, she said finally, eyeing the spot of red seeping through his shirt. Let me fix them before they tear. Sebastian's eyebrows rose, but he nodded toward a cabinet. Medical supplies in there. With practiced movements, Cora gathered what she needed. Her hands remained steady as she helped Sebastian remove his shirt, revealing the hasty work someone had done on his shoulder wound. Working under the bright kitchen lights, she cleaned the area properly. This needs antibiotics, she muttered, placing careful sutures. And whoever did this should never touch a needle again. Most of our medics are better with bullet extraction than cosmetic work, Sebastian replied, watching her hands move with precision. They prioritize speed over scarring. Well, you'll have less scarring now. Cora finished the last stitch, applying a clean dressing. Keep it dry for 24 hours. Thank you. The words came soft, almost unexpected. When she looked up, Sebastian's expression had shifted, less the untouchable crime lord, more a man in pain who appreciated genuine care. Dawn began painting the sky in pale pinks and grays as Cora stood at the windows, watching the city wake. Her phone, returned but now monitored, as Sebastian had plainly stated, buzzed in her pocket. The news alert made her breath catch. Investigation ongoing after overnight violence near private hospital. The words blurred as reality settled in. Yesterday, she'd been a hospital clerk worried about overtime and student loans. Now she stood in a crime lord's penthouse, implicated in something that had already turned violent. All because she'd opened the wrong door on the wrong floor. Your coffee preference is still black, 2 sugars? Gabe asked from the kitchen, breaking into her thoughts. How did you... Cora stopped herself. Of course they knew that too. We have a full breakfast coming up, he continued, as if discussing coffee preferences with a woman under protection was perfectly normal. Mr. Vale insists you eat properly. Sebastian himself had disappeared into what she assumed was his office, leaving her to process everything. The apartment felt both like a fortress and a cage, though an undeniably comfortable one. Outside, rain continued falling, washing away whatever evidence remained of the night's violence. Cora accepted the coffee from Gabe, its warmth seeping into her cold hands. She thought of her small apartment across town, her scheduled shift tomorrow, the simple life she'd had just hours ago. Everything had changed in the space of an elevator ride. 12. Floors that might as well have been 100, carrying her into a world she'd never known existed. The eggs will be here in 10 minutes, Gabe said gently, reading her distant expression. Chef makes excellent omelets. Of course there was a chef. Of course everything would be excellent. Cora sipped her perfectly prepared coffee and watched the city below, where normal people were heading to normal jobs, blissfully unaware of the shadow world she'd stumbled into, a world of ledgers and leverage, of protection and power, of men who killed as easily as they ordered breakfast. The mid-morning sun filtered through the penthouse windows as Cora blinked awake, momentarily disoriented by the unfamiliar luxury surrounding her. 2 hours of fitful sleep had done little to clear her head, but the rich aroma of coffee drew her to awareness. On a sleek dresser lay a stack of clothes, designer tags still attached, in what appeared to be her size: soft gray sweater, dark jeans, even underwear in discreet packaging. A note in precise handwriting read, "For your comfort, S." "Good morning, Miss Bennett," Gabe said as she emerged, dressed in the new clothes that fit perfectly. "Ready for the tour?" He led her through the penthouse methodically, explaining security measures with the patience of a seasoned instructor. First aid kits here, here, and here. He indicated 3 locations. Each bathroom has 1, plus the kitchen and office. The balcony doors are triple locked with motion sensors. Any attempt to force them triggers silent alarms. Cora absorbed the information, noting the careful balance of luxury and fortress. The kitchen gleamed with high-end appliances, while subtle cameras monitored every approach. Even the art pieces seemed positioned to block direct sightlines from neighboring buildings. "The panic buttons?" she asked, remembering Sebastian's earlier mention. "Besides your key fob, there are hidden panels in each room," Gabe demonstrated, pressing one disguised as a light switch. "One touch locks down the entire floor. Only Sebastian's override code can lift it." The elevator chimed, announcing a visitor. Silvio Carbone strode in, all Italian silk and practiced charm. "Ah, our guest of honor." His smile was warm, his eyes calculating. "I trust you're settling in." Sebastian emerged from his office, stance deceptively casual. Cora noticed how he positioned himself between her and Silvio. "Just getting the grand tour," she replied neutrally. Of course, of course." Silvio's tone stayed light. Such an unexpected situation, wasn't it? A simple clerk, wrong room at the wrong time. Or perhaps the right time. I wonder what caught your attention in that moment. Before Cora could respond, Sebastian cut in. "Silvio, status report on the hospital cleanup." "All handled, boss, though our friends across town seem very interested in certain details." A burner phone on Sebastian's desk buzzed. His expression hardened as he viewed the screen. Cora felt her stomach drop when he showed her the image. Herself at the hospital, timestamp from last night, followed by her apartment address and her usual schedule. "They work fast," she whispered. "Ronan," Sebastian spoke into his phone. "Retrieval operation. Miss Bennett will provide a list of essentials." He turned to her. "What do you need?" Cora took a deep breath, organizing her thoughts. My work bag, brown leather, left of the desk, the photo album from the bookshelf, blue tote bag in the closet, I've had it since college, basic clothes, toiletries. The blue tote specifically, Sebastian asked. It was my dad's, before. She didn't elaborate, but something in Sebastian's eyes softened slightly. Ronan will handle it. For now, let me check that wound. Silvio excused himself with another too bright smile as Cora gathered fresh bandages. Her fingers worked steadily, removing the old dressing from Sebastian's shoulder. The stitches are holding well, she noted. No signs of infection. Good. While we wait for Ronan, let's review emergency protocols. Sebastian's tone shifted to instruction mode. If someone breaches the penthouse, what's your first move? Panic button, Cora answered, applying antiseptic. Lock down the floor. Then, bathroom panic room behind the mirror you mentioned earlier. Lock in, wait for your signal. And if I'm not here? Trust only Gabe or Ronan's verification codes. She finished with the bandage. What aren't you telling me about the blue tote? Sebastian studied her for a moment. Your father's debts. The ledger you saw. There might be a connection we need to verify. The elevator hummed as dusk approached. Ronan entered carrying several boxes and the blue tote, his expression grim. Watcher on the roof across from her building, he reported. Amateur. Took photos with a telephoto lens. Want me to handle it? Not yet, Sebastian ordered. Let them think we haven't spotted them. Cora, check your things. She went through the boxes, everything exactly as requested. The blue tote felt lighter than she remembered, but she'd examine it later. Right now, the reality of her situation was sinking in with fresh weight. Sebastian activated the night security protocols, reinforced window shields sliding into place. You won't be going home tonight, he said quietly. Cora watched the city lights disappear behind the shields, thinking of her small apartment, her carefully ordered life, all the normal things that had slipped away in less than 24 hours. The morning's tour felt like days ago already. I know, she replied, and was surprised to find she meant it. Whatever connection existed between that ledger, her father's debts, and her current situation, home was no longer safe. The penthouse, with its panic buttons and security cameras, its luxury and danger, had become her sanctuary, whether she wanted it or not. Gabe appeared with fresh coffee and sandwiches. Ronan took up position by the elevator. Sebastian reviewed security feeds on his tablet, and Cora sat with her father's tote bag, wondering what secrets it might hold, what threads connected his past to her present, and how many more layers of her life would peel away before she understood the whole truth. The night settled around the penthouse like a heavy curtain, the city muffled behind protective barriers. Cora sipped her coffee, watched the others move in their practiced patterns of protection, and tried to ignore the growing certainty that this was just the beginning. The digital clock blinked 11:47 p.m. as Cora sat cross-legged on her temporary bed, the blue tote bag open before her. Sleep had proven impossible, her mind racing with questions about her father's connection to Sebastian's world. Her fingers traced the worn canvas, methodically emptying its contents. Old receipts, a faded baseball cap, reading glasses with one arm slightly bent. Something caught against her nail, an irregularity in the seam. Cora leaned closer to the bedside lamp, discovering a small bulge in the lining. Careful investigation revealed yellowed tape securing an envelope to the fabric. Her heart quickened as she peeled it free, finding a single safe deposit key inside, its serial number still clearly visible. She had never seen this key before, had never known her father to mention a safety deposit box. The weight of it felt significant in her palm, heavy with unspoken secrets. Quick footsteps in the hallway sent her pulse racing. She slipped the key under her pillow, just as a shadow appeared in her doorway. Sebastian stood there, shirtless, his bandaged shoulder visible in the dim light. The hard planes of his chest caught the shadows, making him look carved from marble. He held fresh gauze in one hand. May I use your bathroom light? He asked quietly. Better visibility than mine. Cora nodded, maintaining her distance as he moved to the ensuite. The door remained open, allowing her to see him examining the wound in the mirror. His movements were controlled, but showed hints of discomfort. The stitches are pulling, she observed, keeping her voice steady despite her racing thoughts about the hidden key. Yes. He met her eyes in the reflection. Your work was better than the field medics. I've had practice with post-op care. She hesitated, then moved closer to the bathroom doorway. Let me help. Sebastian turned, studying her face. You're still awake because you're processing, trying to make sense of everything. Wouldn't you be? She began unwrapping his old bandage with careful fingers. You could have tried to run. His voice remained gentle. Thank you for trusting me enough to stay. Is it really trust when there's no choice? There's always a choice, Cora. Sometimes none of them are good ones. The silence stretched between them as she cleaned and redressed his wound, both aware of the strange intimacy of the moment. Her in silk pajamas, him, half-dressed, the quiet of midnight wrapping around them. Morning arrived with the smell of cooking eggs and Gabe's soft knock. Cora emerged from her room in fresh clothes, the safe deposit key safely hidden in her sock drawer. Sebastian sat at the kitchen island, reading reports on his tablet while Gabe worked the stove. Sleep well? Sebastian asked, sliding a cup of coffee toward her. Instead of answering, Cora took a fortifying sip and said, Tell me about the ledger. His expression sharpened, but he didn't deflect. It tracks debts, both financial and personal. Shell companies, front operations, betrayals that need addressing. And one of those companies sent collection notices to my father. Yes. Sebastian's jaw tightened, though I'm still determining why. He was an honest man, Cora insisted, gripping her coffee cup. He worked maintenance at the community center for 20 years. Sometimes honest men get trapped in dishonest situations. Sebastian's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. Vargas has been pressing the hospital union for your information. 2 nurses who blocked access to personnel files were threatened this morning. Cora's stomach dropped. Are they okay? They're under protection now. Sebastian set his phone down with controlled precision. But you won't be going back there. That's my job, she protested. My career, my independence. Your life is worth more than a paycheck. His tone softened at her expression. I'll cover your expenses, guarantee severance if needed. This isn't permanent, but right now it's necessary. Gabe served breakfast, the eggs perfectly done, as if this were a normal morning and not a negotiation over Cora's freedom. She ate mechanically, mind spinning between the hidden key, her father's supposed debts, and the nurses who'd risked themselves to protect her identity. The day passed in a blur of security checks and quiet conversations. Sebastian worked from his office while Gabe taught her more about the penthouse's safety features. By evening, shadows stretched across the marble floors like reaching fingers. Cora stood at the main door, hand resting on the handle. The lock engaged with a soft, definitive click when she tested it. Cool wood pressed against her forehead as she leaned there, accepting the truth she'd been fighting since that first night in the hospital room. There was no safe exit yet. Not with Vargas hunting for leverage, not with her father's mysteries still unsolved, not with those nurses' faces in her mind. Sebastian's quiet footsteps approached behind her. He didn't touch her, didn't offer empty comfort, just stood, witness to her moment of resignation. We'll find answers, he said finally. About my father? About everything. Cora straightened, turning to face him. In the fading light, his expression held something almost gentle beneath its usual control. She thought about the key hidden in her drawer, wondered if it might lead to those answers, and wondered if she was ready for what they might reveal. I need to make a call, she said, to my supervisor at the hospital. Make the morning sun painted golden stripes across the penthouse kitchen as Cora measured coffee grounds into the filter. The familiar ritual steadied her hands, even as Gabe conducted his morning security check nearby. When you need to reach us through the intercom, Gabe explained, demonstrating the panel by the elevator. Use clear skies if everything's normal. Weather warning means trouble, but no immediate threat. Lightning strike is for emergencies, Cora nodded, committing the phrases to memory. And the response? 2 clicks for acknowledged, 3 rapid clicks for stay put. He smiled slightly. Simple is safer under pressure. Ronan arrived quietly, nodding to them both before beginning his methodical sweep of the penthouse. He checked window seals, tested door sensors, and scanned for electronic intrusion with practiced efficiency. Sebastian emerged from his office, moving carefully to protect his injured side. His presence filled the space differently in daylight. Less threatening, more human. He accepted the coffee Cora offered with a quiet, "Thank you." "Let me check those stitches," she said, professional mode engaging automatically. "Morning light's better for spotting infection." He sat at the kitchen island, removing his shirt with controlled movements. Cora examined the wound site clinically, noting healthy healing around the edges. "No signs of infection. You're being careful with it?" "Following doctor's orders." His lips quirked slightly. "I'm not a doctor." "You're the closest thing I have to one right now." As she rebandaged the wound, Sebastian outlined his strategy. We need to maintain appearances of normalcy while I identify the leak in my organization. Someone gave Vargas access to those hospital security feeds too quickly. What does normal look like in this situation? Public appearances, controlled ones. He met her eyes. I've arranged for us to have dinner at Bella Rosa tonight. The restaurant will be closed except for us. Safer that way. You're using me as bait, Cora stated flatly. I'm creating a predictable pattern to watch who reacts. He paused. But yes, partly bait, with your consent. Cora stepped back, squaring her shoulders. I have conditions. Sebastian's eyebrows rose slightly, but he gestured for her to continue. No touching without my permission. No using me to intimidate people. And I want to know the real risks, not just what you think I can handle. A slow smile spread across his face. Genuine pleasure, rather than his usual controlled expression. Direct. I like that. You have my word on all counts. The afternoon brought practical matters. Sebastian's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Helena, joined them virtually as Cora contacted her landlord. They crafted a careful story about an extended medical leave requiring temporary relocation, arranging a 6-month sublet that would keep her apartment from becoming an obvious target. Your rent will continue automatically, Sebastian assured her. The sublet income goes to your account. I can pay my own, Cora started. Consider it part of protective services. His tone brooked no argument. The hospital HR department proved surprisingly accommodating when presented with medical leave paperwork from a prestigious physician, one who, Cora suspected, owed Sebastian a favor. She wondered how many of her normal life's smooth operations now ran on hidden currents of influence. As evening approached, Gabe helped her select appropriate attire from the clothes that had been provided, a deep blue dress that managed to be both elegant and practical. Sebastian wore a tailored suit that concealed any sign of injury, though Cora noticed how he favored his right side while entering the SUV. Ronan drove them through the city's evening traffic in careful loops, checking for tails. The streets grew quieter as they entered the restaurant district. Bella Rosa's exterior looked peaceful, its windows glowing with intimate candlelight that promised a calm evening. Cora's trained eye caught movement, a shadow passing behind the front window, there and gone too quickly. She tensed, but kept her voice steady as she asked, How many of your people are inside? 3. Sebastian's hand moved fractionally toward his concealed weapon. Did you see something? A shadow against the glass, just for a second. He nodded once, face unchanging, but she felt the shift in his energy, from controlled to coiled. Gabe touched his earpiece, murmuring something too low to hear. We can abort, Sebastian offered quietly. Cora took a deep breath, remembering the code phrases Gabe had taught her that morning. If this was a test of normal patterns, running might reveal more than staying. No, but stay close. Always. He offered his arm, a question, not a demand. She took it, noting how he positioned himself between her and the street as they approached the restaurant's front door. The candlelight flickered again, and this time she was certain the shadow she'd seen wasn't cast by any of Sebastian's people. Ronan moved ahead to open the door, his casual stance belying his alertness. Gabe fell in behind them, a protective shadow. The maitre d' station stood empty, the dining room appearing deserted except for the carefully set table in the center surrounded by softly glowing candles. Cora forced herself to move naturally, though every hospital-honed instinct screamed about exposed positions and limited escape routes. Sebastian's arm remained steady under her hand, his steps unhurried, despite what must have been significant pain from his wound. The shadows behind the decorative screens near the kitchen shifted slightly. Cora counted breaths, remembering Gabe's lessons from that morning. Clear skies meant normal. Weather warning meant trouble brewing. Lightning strike meant immediate danger. They were 5 steps from the table when Sebastian's phone vibrated once in his pocket. A signal, she realized, watching his expression remain perfectly neutral as he pulled out her chair. The soft clink of silverware and gentle candlelight created an illusion of normalcy inside Bella Rosa. The restaurant staff, handpicked by Sebastian, moved with practiced efficiency, serving the first course before discreetly withdrawing. The seafood risotto steamed gently, its aroma mingling with the expensive wine neither of them had touched. Tell me about growing up, Sebastian said, his voice softer than usual. The candlelight caught the angles of his face, making him look almost approachable. Cora pushed a piece of shrimp around her plate. Double shifts at the factory for my dad. I practically lived in the hospital waiting room while he worked overtime. She paused. There were always these letters he wouldn't explain, brown envelopes that made him go quiet, Sebastian's jaw tightened briefly before relaxing. My parents didn't leave letters, just memories and scars. His fingers traced absently along his collar. First one came at 17, lesson in loyalty. What happened? Wrong choice of friends, right choice of enemies. He studied her face. You're not afraid to ask direct questions. Hospital work teaches you that dancing around topics costs lives. Cora took a small bite, surprised by how good it tasted despite her nerves. What about before 17? Something almost gentle crossed his expression. Private schools, empty houses, nannies who changed every month until I was old enough not to need them. He leaned back slightly. Your father. He protected you from those letters. I wish he hadn't. Maybe I could have helped. The words carried old guilt. Sebastian opened his mouth to respond, but his eyes shifted fractionally toward the kitchen. A barely perceptible creak of hinges carried through the quiet restaurant. Everything happened in heartbeats. The masked figure burst through the kitchen door, weapon raised. Sebastian moved with fluid violence, flipping their heavy table onto its side. His body covered Cora's as they went down, the impact driving air from her lungs. 2 precise shots cracked through the air, followed by a harsh cry of pain. Sebastian rolled away from her, moving with lethal grace despite his injury. The gunman was already down, weapon skittering across the floor, but Sebastian took no chances. He delivered a brutal kick to the man's ribs, then pinned him with a knee to the spine, zip ties appearing from somewhere to secure the attacker's hands. Cora's hands shook, but her mind remained clear, hospital training kicking in. She pulled out her phone, dialing the private emergency line Sebastian had given her. GSW, lower extremity, conscious victim, location secured. Her voice stayed steady as she rattled off the address. Blood pooled slowly around the would-be, assassin's leg where Sebastian's shots had found their mark. Not fatal, she noted clinically, but definitely incapacitating. Sebastian's violence was precisely measured, a shield rather than a sword. The front door burst open, making Cora flinch. Silvio rushed in with 4 armed men, his usual smooth manner ruffled. Boss, how did they get through? The perimeter was tight. I, personally. Was it? Sebastian's voice carried a dangerous quiet. He studied Silvio's face with new intensity, cataloging every micro-expression. Seems our rat problem is worse than we thought. Silvio's smile flickered. I'll handle the cleanup myself. Quietly. No. Sebastian stood, adjusting his cuffs with mechanical precision. Ronan will oversee it. You'll report to my office tomorrow morning, early. Color drained from Silvio's face, but he covered it quickly. Of course, boss. First thing. Sebastian moved to Cora's side, helping her up with gentle hands that contrasted sharply with his earlier violence. His touch lingered, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? No. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Your stitches? Held. His lips quirked slightly. Your work is quality. Gabe appeared silently, guiding them toward the exit while Ronan's team secured the scene. The night air hit Cora's face like a shock, making her realize how much adrenaline still coursed through her system. The SUV waited, engine running, lights off. Inside the vehicle's quiet interior, Cora finally looked at her hands. They trembled violently, the delayed reaction hitting hard. Sebastian noticed immediately. He reached across the space between them, taking her right hand in his. His skin felt warm, calloused. Impossibly gentle for someone she'd just watched incapacitate a man without hesitation. He raised her hand slowly, deliberately, maintaining eye contact. His lips brushed her knuckles, the gesture both courtly and possessive. I keep what I protect, he murmured against her skin. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with promise and threat. Cora didn't pull away from his touch, but she didn't respond either. Her mind raced with the evening's implications. The precise timing of the attack, Silvio's too late arrival, Sebastian's calculated response. Most of all, she thought about how naturally she'd fallen into emergency protocols, how easily she'd accepted the violence as necessary. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows as they headed back to the penthouse. Sebastian kept hold of her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. The gesture should have felt presumptuous, but instead it anchored her, giving her mind something to focus on besides replaying the attack. Gabe spoke quietly with the driver, coordinating their route. Sebastian's phone buzzed periodically with updates, but he checked them one-handed, unwilling to release his grip on Cora. The subtle possessiveness of it should have bothered her more than it did. When they hit a red light, Cora noticed their reflection in the window, her evening dress slightly askew, Sebastian's suit still immaculate despite everything. They looked like any couple returning from dinner, except for the steel in Sebastian's eyes and the way his free hand rested near his concealed weapon. The city stretched around them, unknowing and unchanged, while Cora's world had shifted irreversibly. She watched the familiar streets pass by, understanding that she could never see them the same way again. Every shadow might hold a threat, every quiet moment might shatter into violence, and the man beside her would kill to keep her safe. Back at the penthouse, the elevator doors opened to controlled chaos. Gabe was already coordinating with the night team, his usual calm demeanor intensified into laser focus. 2 men in the lobby, 2 on the floor below, rotating shifts every 4 hours, he instructed, marking positions on a tablet. Ronan stood at the kitchen counter, the recovered weapon disassembled before him. His expression darkened as he examined each piece. "This is our stock. Series marks match the shipment from 3 weeks ago. Someone's diverting inventory." Sebastian's jaw tightened, but he kept his hand gentle on Cora's lower back as he guided her inside. "Get me a full trace on the serial numbers." Cora slipped away to her room, changing out of her dinner clothes into soft loungewear. Her fingers still trembled slightly as she pulled a fresh shirt from Sebastian's guest closet. The fabric felt expensive, crisp cotton that probably cost more than her weekly salary. When she found Sebastian, he stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, his profile sharp against the city lights. He'd removed his jacket and gun holster, but tension radiated from his shoulders. The metropolis sprawled below like a circuit board of light and shadow, and his eyes tracked movement patterns she couldn't see. "You're studying it like a tactical map," she observed, offering the shirt. He turned, something softening in his expression. "Every light is a potential vantage point. Every shadow could hide a spotter." He changed shirts with efficient movements, not bothering to turn away. "The shooter's angle was wrong for an outside job. They knew exactly where we'd be sitting. Someone close to you." It wasn't a question. "Yes." His hand brushed a scar visible above his collar. Not the first time trust has left its mark. Cora found herself reaching out, fingers hovering near the raised line of tissue. "May I?" Sebastian went very still, but nodded. She traced the scar gently, feeling the texture of healed damage. "This one? First real fight I survived. 17. Thought I knew everything." His voice dropped lower, intimate. "Learned loyalty isn't guaranteed just because you've earned it." They migrated to the sofa, the city's glow casting soft shadows. Cora curled into the corner, watching his profile. "Tell me?" "Street fight turned ambush. Thought I was defending territory, but I was being tested." His eyes stayed on the windows, but his focus was years away. 5 guys I considered brothers. Only 2 stayed loyal when the knives came out. That's when I learned to read people's breaking points. Cora drew her knees up, thinking of her father's last year. Sometimes you don't see the breaks coming. Dad started getting strange mail 6 months before he died. Nothing in the envelopes but blank papers with numbers. He'd lock himself in his study for hours. Sebastian turned to face her fully. "When?" 3 years ago. He stopped sleeping, jumped at sounds. I tried to help, but he'd just say, "Better if you don't know." She traced patterns on the sofa's leather. The week before his heart attack, he burned everything in the backyard. Sebastian's hand found hers, thumb brushing her knuckles. "The ledger you saw, those numbers weren't random. I figured that out when I saw the format matched." She didn't pull away from his touch. "What I don't understand is why he never asked for help." Pride, protection, sometimes both. Sebastian's other hand came up to brush a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was careful, questioning rather than assuming permission. They sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below. Gabe's quiet commands and Ronan's focused muttering created a strange domesticity around their bubble of calm. Sebastian's hand remained warm against hers, neither demanding nor retreating. Dawn began to pale the horizon when Cora finally stood. Sleep felt impossible, her mind racing with possibilities. In her room, she pulled out the tote again, fingers finding the hidden seam where she'd discovered the safe deposit key. The metal felt heavy with secrets. She studied it in the growing light, decision crystallizing. The bank would open in a few hours. With enough security and clear boundaries, she could finally unlock whatever her father had hidden away. She found Sebastian in his study, already dressed for the day. "I need to go to the bank." He looked up sharply. "Not today. The risk." "With security. Your best men." She held up the key. "This was in my father's things. Whatever's in that box might explain everything. The numbers, the ledger, why he was targeted. Sebastian studied her face, then the key. Full team. Ronan runs point, Gabe on close protection. I'll monitor from here. His expression grew intent. But any documents we find are yours to control. Agreed? Cora nodded, relief and anticipation mixing in her chest. Agreed. She turned to prepare for the day, but his voice stopped her. Cora! She looked back. Thank you for trusting me with this. The simple sincerity in his tone made her pause. Thank you for giving me the choice. Morning light spilled across the penthouse as she headed to her room, painting everything in shades of gold and promise. The key felt warmer in her palm, like it knew its secrets would finally see daylight. Late morning sunlight glinted off rain-slick streets as their convoy pulled away from the penthouse. Cora sat in the back of an armored SUV, the safe deposit key warm in her palm. Ronan rode shotgun, his shoulders tight with focus, while another guard, Marcus, scanned side streets through tinted windows. 3-minute arrival, Ronan reported into his earpiece. Perimeter clean. The bank's granite facade loomed ahead, its revolving doors spinning with lunch hour traffic. Sebastian's voice came through the car's speaker. Remember the signals? Any doubt, any pressure, you abort. I know. Cora checked her reflection in the window, adjusted her borrowed blazer. She looked professional, unremarkable, exactly the cover they needed. They parked in a reserved spot near the entrance. Sebastian's car idled discreetly around the corner, close enough to react but far enough to avoid drawing attention. Ronan and Marcus flanked Cora as they entered, their suits and earpieces marking them as executive security rather than muscle. The bank manager recognized Ronan's credentials, leading them to a private viewing room without questions. Cameras watched the hallway, but the room itself was a blind spot. Old money preferred privacy with their secrets. Cora's hands remained steady as she inserted the key. The lock turned with a smooth click. Inside, leather-bound ledgers and manila envelopes filled the metal box, everything preserved in climate-controlled silence. Take your time, Ronan said softly, positioning himself by the door. Marcus has the hall. She opened the first ledger, her father's familiar handwriting filling the pages. Numbers flowed in careful columns, each entry coded with references she recognized from her own accounting work. But these weren't simple business records. They were money trails, carefully obscured transfers moving through shell companies and offshore accounts. Oh, Dad, she whispered, seeing the pattern emerge. You were trying to track it. The wire confirmations told a darker story. Each transaction linked to businesses she now knew were fronts for Diego Vargas's organization. Her father hadn't been complicit. He'd been investigating, documenting the flow of dirty money through legitimate channels. Her phone's camera clicked quietly as she captured key pages. Some showed signs of highlighting, others had sticky notes in her father's writing, check source, and compare to Q3 discrepancy. He knew something was wrong, she told Ronan. He was gathering evidence. The final envelope contained handwritten notes, including names that made Ronan's expression tighten. Cora sealed everything back into its original order, leaving the box locked in the vault. Better to preserve the originals untouched while they worked with copies. The return trip took a different route, doubling back twice to shake any possible tails. In Sebastian's car, Cora showed him the summary on her phone. His jaw clenched as he scrolled through the images. Vargas was using your father's expertise without revealing the true nature of the accounts, he said. When your father started asking questions, they silenced him. Cora's voice stayed steady, despite the old grief rising fresh. Made it look like stress and bad health. Sebastian's hand found hers, squeezing gently. We'll make it right. Back at the penthouse, Sebastian immediately ordered secure digital scans and reinforced storage for the physical evidence. Cora spent the afternoon creating a timeline, matching her father's notes to known events in Vargas's operation. Look at this pattern, she said, as evening settled in. Sebastian leaned close, examining the spreadsheet she'd built. Every quarter, large sums moving through these 3 companies, then vanishing into numbered accounts. His old money laundering network. Sebastian's cologne wrapped around her, clean and expensive. Your father found the weak points in his system. They worked through dinner, picking at delivered pasta while building a strategy. Sebastian's contacts could expose the shell companies without revealing their source. Careful leaks to financial authorities would trigger audits while keeping her father's role hidden. We'll need to move carefully, Sebastian said. Vargas has people inside regulatory agencies, but not enough to stop a full investigation once it starts. Cora highlighted another sequence. especially if we time it with his quarterly transfers. Midnight approached, city lights twinkling beyond the windows. They'd migrated to the sofa, papers spread across the coffee table. Cora felt the familiar comfort of Sebastian's presence beside her, the dangerous grace of him contained in perfect stillness. When she looked up from her notes, his face was close enough to count eyelashes. The air between them thickened with possibility. Sebastian's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes, asking without words. Cora's pulse quickened, but she wasn't ready. Not with her father's ghost so fresh in her mind, not with vengeance still unfinished. "Not yet," she whispered. Sebastian nodded, no frustration in his expression, only patience and something deeper, more permanent than simple wanting. He shifted back slightly, maintaining their connection while respecting her boundary. They returned to the documents, but the moment's intimacy lingered like perfume. His control, his willingness to wait spoke volumes about the man beneath the power. Violence lived in his hands, but so did the capacity for gentleness. Cora found herself studying his profile as he reviewed another page. The hard lines of his face had softened in the low light, making him look almost vulnerable, almost human. "We should sleep," he said eventually, gathering the papers into neat stacks. "Tomorrow we'll start moving pieces into place." She nodded, rising slowly. Her body felt heavy with revelation and possibility, with justice too long delayed. Sebastian watched her walk to her room, his presence a steady anchor in her shifting world. The safe deposit key sat on her nightstand, its mission fulfilled but its consequences still unfolding. In the dark, Cora traced its edges and thought of her father's careful documentation, his silent fight against corruption. She would finish what he started, but on her terms, with Sebastian's power tempered by her conscience, with truth wielded like a scalpel rather than a sword. The afternoon sun cast harsh shadows through the parking garage's concrete levels. Cora sat in the back of Sebastian's SUV, reviewing her notes for the HR meeting. The convoy, 2 vehicles, front and back, wound up through the empty structure, tires echoing off bare walls. A black sedan suddenly screeched into position, blocking their path. Another cut off their retreat. "Down!" Sebastian yanked Cora across the seats as bullets shattered glass. He kicked open the door, dragging her behind a thick concrete pillar. The sound of gunfire bounced off walls, deafening. 2 men advanced from the front car, weapons raised. Sebastian's movements were fluid, lethal. He dropped the first attacker with a double tap to the chest. The second dove for cover, returning fire. Cora pressed against the pillar, heart hammering, as Sebastian systematically eliminated the threat. Ronan's team engaged the rear vehicle. The firefight was brief but brutal. When silence fell, only their people remained standing. Cora's hands wouldn't stop shaking. Sebastian holstered his weapon and cupped her face, his touch impossibly gentle for someone who'd just demonstrated such violence. "Breathe with me," he murmured. "In through your nose, out through your mouth, that's it." She followed his lead, matching his steady rhythm until the tremors subsided. His thumbs stroked her cheeks, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "Clean this up," he ordered Ronan. "I want to know who hired them." The ride back was tense, city streets sliding past tinted windows. In the shadowed back seat, Sebastian held her close, one arm wrapped protectively around her shoulders. "I've never been good at anything but violence," he said quietly. "Built my empire on it, survived because of it. But the way you look at me—" He touched her chin, turning her face to his. "Like there might be something worth saving. It steadies everything." Cora traced the line of his jaw, feeling the tension there. "I see all of you. The violence and the control, yes, but also the man who asks permission, who keeps his word." Back at the penthouse, evening painted the sky in deep purples. Sebastian ordered enhanced security while Cora showered, trying to wash away the memory of gunfire. When she emerged in soft loungewear, he was waiting in the living room, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. They needed to talk about the shift between them. The growing heat, the careful distance they'd maintained, all of it demanded words. "I require explicit consent," Sebastian said, his voice low and serious. "For everything, I need to hear you say what you want." Cora nodded, appreciating his directness. "I need to set the pace. No marks where they'll show, nothing that feels like ownership instead of choice." "Agreed." His eyes darkened. "Tell me what you want right now." "Kiss me," she whispered, "like you've been wanting to since that first night." He moved slowly, giving her time to retreat. When his lips met hers, the kiss was devastating, controlled passion that made her knees weak. She wound her arms around his neck, pressing closer as his hands settled at her waist. They made it to his bedroom between kisses, clothes falling away. Sebastian worshipped her body with the same intensity he brought to everything, learning what made her gasp and arch. Every touch was a question, every response celebrated with praise that made her flush. "Beautiful," he murmured against her throat. "Perfect. Tell me what you need." She told him, words falling like stars between them. He listened, adjusted, built her pleasure with careful dedication until they were both trembling. When they finally came together, it was with absolute certainty, two pieces clicking into place. After, they lay tangled in expensive sheets, her head on his chest, while his fingers traced patterns on her spine. The city glittered beyond his windows, but their world had narrowed to this room, this moment. "No one will ever take you from me," Sebastian said softly, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I'll burn the world down first." Cora propped herself up on an elbow, meeting his gaze. "I'm here because I choose to be. Not from fear, not from obligation. I choose you, all of you." His arms tightened around her. Outside, guards patrolled with increased vigilance. The ledgers sat secure in a reinforced safe, evidence and ammunition both. But here in this bed, wrapped in each other's warmth, they found something rare and precious. Trust freely given, power willingly shared. Dawn approached with gentle steps. They dozed between soft kisses and quiet conversations, learning the texture of this new intimacy. Sebastian's phone buzzed occasionally with security updates, but he ignored everything except the feel of her in his arms. Cora traced his scars in the growing light, memorizing the map of his survival. He caught her hand, pressed his lips to her palm like a prayer. They'd chosen this, chosen each other, with clear eyes and full hearts. The city began to wake beyond their windows. Soon they'd need to face the day's challenges. More security arrangements, strategic moves against their enemies, the careful dance of power and protection. But for now, they rested in the certainty of their choice, stronger together than apart. The late morning sun streamed through the penthouse windows, but its warmth couldn't chase away the chill that settled over the room when Ronan burst in, his usually stoic expression tight with concern. "Boss," he said, nodding to Sebastian, who sat, reviewing security footage with Cora beside him. "We've got a problem. The storage unit on 10th, someone accessed it 30 minutes after we stored those scanned ledgers." Sebastian's hand stilled on his coffee cup. "Who knows about that location?" "That's the thing," Ronan said, pulling up a security feed on his tablet. "Limited list. Me, you, Silvio, and 2 trusted guards. Access log shows a familiar code." As if summoned by his name, Silvio breezed in, carrying a tray of expensive coffee drinks. "Morning, everyone. Thought we could use a pick-me-up after yesterday's excitement." His smile was broad, practiced. "These walls have ears lately, don't they?" Cora's stomach clenched. Something in his tone, the too casual way he distributed drinks, felt wrong. She watched Sebastian's face remain carefully neutral as Ronan pulled up another screen. "Fingerprint record from the storage unit keypad," Ronan said quietly, turning the tablet so Sebastian could see. Sebastian's eyes darkened. "Silvio, my office. Now." Inside the glass-walled space, Sebastian's voice remained controlled. "Explain the access." "What access?" Silvio spread his hands, the picture of innocence. "I've been coordinating with our contacts about yesterday's garage incident." "Interesting you should mention coordination," Sebastian said. "Tell me how you knew about the bank visit's timing when you weren't on that detail." A flicker of something crossed Silvio's face. There and gone. "Oh, you know how word gets around. Speaking of the bank, that deposit box had quite the story." Sebastian went very still. The bank box contents weren't common knowledge. Before he could move, an alarm shrieked through the penthouse. "Bedroom window sensor," Ronan called out, already moving. In that split second of distraction, Silvio bolted for the service stairwell. Sebastian cursed, reaching for his weapon. Cora's phone buzzed with a message. "Urgent. Ronan injured in garage, needs medical attention." Her first aid training kicked in. She grabbed her kit and rushed toward the hall, heart pounding. The elevator would be too slow. She pushed through the stairwell door. Strong arms grabbed her from behind. Something sharp pressed against her neck. "Needle cap," Silvio's voice came low in her ear. "Move wrong and the real needle goes in. Nice and quiet now." He dragged her backward into a maintenance elevator she hadn't known existed. Her training urged her to stay calm, observe details. The service car smelled of cleaning supplies. Silvio's breathing was controlled but quick. She tried to track their descent but lost count of floors through the fog of fear. When the doors opened, he hustled her through what looked like an abandoned wing of the hospital. Closed for renovations, signs still up from months ago. "Sit," he ordered, shoving her into a chair in what had once been a treatment room. Zip ties bit into her wrists as he secured them behind her. Silvio pulled out his phone, thumbed the camera on. "Smile for Sebastian, sweetheart. He's going to want proof of life." Cora kept her face neutral, refusing to give him the satisfaction of fear. Her mind raced, cataloging details. 3rd floor based on the window view, east wing based on the morning light. Supply cart still in the corner with basic medical items. "Your boyfriend has something I need," Silvio said, adjusting the camera angle. "Those ledgers are worth a fortune to the right buyer. Vargas has been very patient, but now it's time to close the deal." He recorded his message, speaking directly to the camera. "Sebastian, midnight, old loading dock. Bring the ledgers, come alone, or Cora takes a one-way trip somewhere you'll never find her." The phone lowered. Silvio's smile turned cruel. "Don't worry. If he cooperates, you might even survive this. Vargas likes his leverage alive, usually." Cora focused on breathing steadily, remembering Sebastian's lessons about staying clear-headed in crisis. The zip ties were tight, but not cutting off circulation. The room had 2 exits. Silvio kept checking his phone, waiting for confirmation from someone. She watched him pace, noting how he favored his right side, an old injury Sebastian had mentioned once. His gun was tucked at his back, visible when he turned. He was trying to project confidence, but his movements were jittery. "They'll figure out where we are," she said quietly. Silvio laughed. "This wing's been closed for months. No cameras, no staff. By the time they search every floor, we'll be long gone. I've planned this for weeks." "Is that how long you've been selling information to Vargas?" His expression darkened. "Shut up! Sebastian's had this coming, treating me like some errand boy when I'm the one who kept his operation running smooth. The ledgers are my ticket up. Vargas knows how to reward loyalty." Cora stored every word, every detail, the way his hand trembled slightly when checking messages, the sound of distant construction that meant the wing wasn't completely deserted, the fact that he hadn't disabled her phone, just tossed it across the room, screen dark but possibly still broadcasting location data. Silvio stepped into the hall to make another call. Cora tested the zip ties, feeling for weak points. Sebastian had taught her about restraints. There were ways to break them if you knew how. She just needed time and opportunity. The morning light crept across the floor as minutes ticked by. Somewhere above, she knew Sebastian and Ronan would be turning the building inside out. They'd find her. She just had to stay alive and alert until they did. Silvio returned, agitation clear in his movements. "Change of plans, we're moving early, can't risk." A distant door slammed. He whirled toward the sound, gun appearing in his hand. Sebastian stared at the video on his phone, his expression turning to stone. Cora's calm face filled the screen, the bruise forming on her neck visible even in the dim light. Silvio's voice taunted from behind the camera. "Sweep every Vargas property," he ordered, his voice deadly quiet. "Every safe house, every shell company address. If she has a single mark on her that wasn't there in this video, I'll burn his empire to ash." Ronan nodded and stepped out to coordinate teams. Within minutes, reports flooded in, properties under surveillance, informants pressed for intel, traffic cameras scanning for Silvio's known vehicles. In his office, Sebastian pulled up building schematics, marking likely locations while Gabe cross-referenced cell tower data. A guard burst in with news. They'd caught a lookout, trying to slip away from the perimeter. "Bring him to me," Sebastian commanded. The man broke quickly under Ronan's methodical pressure. "Vargas, he's got a buyer coming in from out of state. If the ledgers don't show by midnight, the girl goes to them instead. Some syndicate looking to expand territory." Sebastian's fingers dented the metal arm of his chair. "Location?" "Don't know exactly, but they're keeping her close. Vargas wants to move fast if the deal goes south." Meanwhile, in the abandoned clinic wing, Cora forced herself to breathe steadily. The zip ties weren't amateur work, but Gabe had taught her about restraints during their security lessons. Her fingers found the IV clamp she'd spotted on the supply cart when Silvio first stepped away. Careful not to make noise, she worked the metal until it snapped, creating a sharp edge. The plastic ties yielded slowly to her sawing motion. When they finally parted, she kept her hands behind her back, maintaining the illusion of helplessness. Silvio paced, checking his phone obsessively. "Those ledgers, there's more than what was in the bank box, isn't there? The real dirt." "It's all at the original hospital," Cora lied smoothly, buying time. "Safe deposit box in the admin wing," he snorted. Nice try, but keep stalling. Maybe I'll let Sebastian hear you scream before this is over. The shard of metal was cool against her palm as she waited. She cataloged exits, counted Silvio's steps, noted the growing tension in his movements as messages went unanswered. In the penthouse command center, Sebastian's team had narrowed the search. Silvio's burner phone pinged between 3 towers that overlapped near the hospital complex. Building security feeds showed no movement in the active wings, but the abandoned renovation section was a blind spot. There, Sebastian pointed to the blueprints. 3rd floor, east wing, minimal access points, no active cameras. Perfect for holding someone without detection. Ronan laid out thermal imaging from their surveillance drone. 2 heat signatures in that section, plus 2 more at the stairwell entries. Guards. As midnight approached, Sebastian and Ronan moved through the dark halls like shadows. The first guard went down silently to a sleeper hold. The second never saw Ronan coming. They climbed the service stairs. Communication silent and coordinated from years of working together. Inside the treatment room, Cora heard the whisper of movement in the hall. Silvio was distracted, arguing with someone on his phone. She tightened her grip on the metal shard. Ready. The door burst open. Sebastian filled the frame, gun trained on Silvio with lethal focus. Ronan flanked him, covering the second exit. On your knees, Sebastian ordered, voice arctic cold. Silvio tried to grab for Cora, but she was already moving, the loose zip ties falling as she drove the IV shard toward his gun hand. He howled, weapon clattering to the floor. Sebastian had him pinned in seconds, knee in his back. He looked at Cora. Your choice, quick death or slow justice. She straightened her spine. Justice. Let the law take him. With proof of everything he's done. That's worth more than blood. Sebastian nodded to Ronan, who zip-tied Silvio properly and hauled him up. Our friends in the DA's office will be very interested in those recordings you made, and the money trail to Vargas. As Ronan dragged Silvio away, Sebastian crossed to Cora in 2 long strides. His hands cupped her face with infinite gentleness, checking for injuries. I found you, he said roughly. The tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. She pressed her forehead to his chest, letting the fear drain away as his arms came around her. They stood like that for long moments, his heartbeat strong under her ear, his fingers threading through her hair. Let's go home, he murmured against her temple. She nodded, exhausted but steady on her feet. Sebastian kept one arm around her as they walked out, his body angled to shield her from the sight of the subdued guards. His team had secured the entire floor with silent efficiency. In the SUV, she curled into his side, finally allowing herself to tremble. He pulled her closer, murmuring soft Italian that sounded like prayers or promises. The city lights blurred past the windows as they headed for the safety of the penthouse. Gabe met them at the private elevator, relief visible in his professional mask. Security protocols upgraded. New codes being implemented now. Medical kit ready in your room, Miss Bennett. Thank you, she managed a smile for him. For all those lessons about restraints and staying calm. They helped. The elevator rose smoothly as Sebastian kept her tucked against him, his thumb brushing gentle circles on her shoulder. The adrenaline crash was starting to hit, but she felt anchored by his solid presence. The relative quiet shattered as alarms screamed through the hospital corridors. Emergency lights strobed red across the institutional walls, casting strange shadows. Sebastian Vale! Diego Vargas's voice crackled over the ancient PA system, echoing with distortion. Did you really think I'd let Silvio handle this alone? Sebastian's expression hardened as he pushed Cora behind him, gun already drawn. Through the window, they could see Vargas's, men spreading through the loading bay below, tactical gear marking them as a professional strike team. The hospital hit was perfect, wasn't it? Vargas continued, satisfaction dripping from every word. Get you somewhere public, somewhere you'd have to play by civilian rules. Then your little clerk stumbles in, finds those ledgers. Couldn't have planned it better myself. Cora's mind raced, analyzing angles and access points like Sebastian had taught her. The fire control panel caught her eye, a modern system retrofitted into the old building. I need to reach that panel, she whispered to Sebastian, pointing. Trust me. He nodded once, covering her movement as she darted across the corridor. Her fingers flew over the controls, muscle memory from years of hospital work guiding her. With precise keystrokes, she initiated a localized emergency protocol. Heavy fire doors slammed down throughout the wing, smoke dampers engaged, blinding the security cameras with dense white fog. The automated system's display showed clear positions of every sealed section. Cora grabbed a radio from a fallen guard's belt. North corridor sealed, she relayed to Sebastian. They're bottlenecked in sections C and D. Emergency stairwell still accessible in B wing. Copy, Sebastian's voice came back, pride evident even through the static. Ronan, take your team through B wing. Circle behind. Glass exploded inward as bullets tore through the window. Sebastian moved with impossible speed, spinning to cover Cora as rounds impacted where she'd been standing seconds before. A sharp grunt of pain told her at least one had found its mark. Sebastian! She caught him as he staggered, crimson spreading across his shirt. The bullet had torn through his shoulder, meant for her heart if he hadn't moved. Training took over. She stripped off her sweater, folding it into a pressure pad. Ronan, I need a tourniquet, now. The lieutenant materialized beside them, combat medical kit already open. Cora worked with practiced efficiency, tourniquet secured, wound packed, vital signs monitored. Her voice stayed steady as she called out instructions. Keep pressure here, she guided Ronan's hands. Watch for signs of shock. If his pulse gets thready or he loses consciousness. I'm fine, Sebastian growled, trying to sit up despite the blood loss. Vargas is being handled, Ronan assured him as gunfire erupted from the stairwell. His team had successfully flanked the rival boss. The firefight was brutal but brief. When silence fell, Vargas was zip-tied and bleeding from a shoulder wound that mirrored Sebastian's. His men were dead or captured, their tactical gear revealing high-end equipment marked with serial numbers, traceable evidence linking directly to his shell companies. The ledgers were just the start, Vargas spat as Ronan's men dragged him past. You think this ends here? Yes, Sebastian said simply, still holding pressure on his wound. It does. Sirens wailed closer, emergency lights painting the walls in strobing blue. The EMTs rushed in with their gurney, but Sebastian waved them off until Cora was beside him. Sir, we need to... One started. She rides with me, Sebastian cut him off, steel in his voice despite the blood loss. His fingers found hers, grip unwavering. Non-negotiable. Cora climbed into the ambulance first, never letting go of his hand as they transferred him to the stretcher. The EMTs worked around their joined fingers, starting IVs and attaching monitors, while Sebastian's gaze stayed locked on her face. You're going to need surgery, she told him softly. Worth it, he murmured back. Would take 1,000 bullets for you. Let's not test that theory. She brushed his hair back from his forehead, heart aching at how pale he'd grown. Just focus on staying conscious until we reach the hospital. The ambulance doors slammed shut, sirens screaming to life as they pulled away from the scene. Through the small window, Cora could see Ronan coordinating the cleanup, evidence being cataloged, Vargas being loaded into an unmarked vehicle. Sebastian's thumb traced circles on her wrist, his pulse steady under the monitor's beeping. His eyes never left her face, as if memorizing every detail. You were brilliant, he said quietly. The fire system, the radio calls, you saved us all. We saved each other, she corrected, squeezing his fingers. That's what partners do. A ghost of a smile touched his lips before pain tightened his expression. The EMT adjusted his medication, and Cora watched his breathing even out slightly. Almost there, she soothed, brushing her lips across his knuckles. Just stay with me. Always, he promised, voice rough but certain, even wounded, even pale with blood loss. His presence filled the small space with unwavering strength. The ambulance swayed as they turned into the emergency bay, blue lights reflecting off rain-slick pavement. Cora could see the trauma team assembling, ready to take over the moment the doors opened. She leaned close to Sebastian's ear. I'll be right here waiting when you're out of surgery. His fingers tightened on hers one last time before the doors burst open and organized chaos descended. The trauma team moved with practiced efficiency, rattling off vital signs and medication doses as they wheeled him inside. Cora followed, still holding his hand until they reached the OR doors. Only then did she let go, watching through the small window as they disappeared down the sterile corridor. Her hands were steady as she pulled out her phone to update Ronan. The night's violence felt distant now, muted by fluorescent lights and antiseptic smell, but she could still feel the phantom pressure of Sebastian's fingers twined with hers, still hear the certainty in his voice when he'd promised always. Late afternoon, sunlight streamed through the penthouse windows, painting golden stripes across Sebastian as he reclined on the leather sofa. His fresh bandage peeked from beneath a soft black Henley, his movements careful but steady. The private medical team had done excellent work, getting them out of the hospital within 24 hours under carefully crafted aliases. Cora perched on the coffee table beside him, tablet in hand as she scrolled through updates. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, comfortable in leggings and one of his sweaters that smelled of his cologne. The familiar scent helped ground her as she organized the aftermath of their ordeal. Silvio's arraignment is scheduled for Monday, she reported, checking her notes. The DA fast-tracked the charges: conspiracy, kidnapping, attempted murder. They're holding him without bail, given his connections and flight risk. Sebastian's jaw tightened at the mention of his former lieutenant. And Vargas? Federal custody. The evidence from his team's gear created an airtight paper trail. They're adding racketeering and assault to a long list of charges. She touched his arm gently. He won't hurt anyone else. He covered her hand with his, thumb stroking her wrist. The ledgers? Safe with Marcus and that federal contact you trust, Agent Chen. They're building the case carefully, making sure my father's role stays anonymous. Cora's voice softened. They understand he was an unwitting participant. Sebastian nodded, expression fierce with protection. I've signed the transfer documents. All assets from those shell companies are being moved into the trust. Your father's name will be cleared and honored. Cora's eyes stung. Thank you. For everything. He shifted carefully, making room beside him on the sofa. She settled against his uninjured side, head resting on his shoulder as he wrapped an arm around her. There's more, he murmured. I've established a new front company. Completely legitimate, fully transparent. I want you to run compliance. You have the skills, the integrity. Help me rebuild the right way. She lifted her head to study his face. You're serious? Completely. His eyes held hers. Take some time from the hospital. Use the trust to launch that clinic foundation you mentioned, bringing healthcare to underserved communities. Oversee our business audits. Build something lasting. The conviction in his voice made her heart swell. This was the man she'd glimpsed beneath the power and control, someone who could channel his strength into protection rather than destruction. Evening settled around them as Gabe quietly delivered their dinner. Simple pasta, fresh bread, wine they both left untouched in favor of clear heads. They ate slowly, discussing practical details between bites, security protocols, business transitions, the balance of public and private lives. Sebastian set his plate aside, reaching into his pocket. He withdrew 2 items, a sleek key fob for the penthouse elevator and a small velvet box that made Cora's breath catch. The key is yours, no strings attached, he said softly. The box. That's a promise. For now or later, whenever you're ready, no pressure, no demands, just certainty. Cora's fingers trembled as she took the key fob, warmth blooming in her chest at his patience, his willingness to move at her pace while making his intentions clear. Let's start with the keys, she said, smiling, and plan the rest together. The relief and joy that crossed his face made him look younger, lighter. He pressed a kiss to her temple, then carefully stood, offering his hand. Come watch the sunset with me. She took his hand, following him onto the balcony. The city spread below them, lights beginning to twinkle on as dusk painted the sky in watercolor shades of pink and gold. Sebastian stood behind her, arms wrapped secure around her waist as she leaned back against his chest. You were the only door I ever wanted to open again, he murmured against her hair. Cora turned in his embrace, reaching up to trace the strong line of his jaw. You're mine forever, she whispered. And I'm your always. His kiss was tender, unhurried, full of promise. The skyline stretched peaceful around them, danger dissolved into memory, their future stretching bright ahead, chosen with clear eyes and full hearts. The penthouse felt different now. No longer a gilded cage, but a sanctuary they'd forged together. Through the glass doors, Cora could see their dinner dishes still on the coffee table, her tablet with its list of plans, the key fob and velvet box sitting side by side. Simple domestic touches that spoke of permanence, of building something real. Sebastian's arms tightened fractionally, drawing her closer as the last rays of sun painted them in gentle light. His heartbeat was steady under her palm, his breathing easy despite the healing wound. They'd walked through fire together and emerged stronger, trust tested and proven in the crucible of danger. The city hummed below, traffic and distant sirens creating familiar white noise. But up here, wrapped in each other's arms, they'd carved out a pocket of peace. No more looking over shoulders, no more shadows in doorways. Just this, chosen family, chosen love, chosen life. Cora tilted her face up for another kiss as the first stars appeared above them. Sebastian's smile against her lips held all the tenderness he reserved for her alone, the careful warrior learning to lay down his armor in the safety of her love.